Hi, Tina Peters here.
See, today they go after you if you're investigating that sort of thing.
Hi, I'm Garland Favorito.
And I'm Tamara Favorito with Voter GA. That's Voters Organized for Trusted Election Results in Georgia. And we are so honored to once again be hosting the Truth Matters with Tina Peters. So what we're going to do tonight is first review a landmark case that was the judge finally issued a ruling on down here in Georgia, known as the Curling versus Raffensperger. And we will have guests to join us, Ricardo Davis. And then in our second segment, we're going to talk about the president's executive order for preserving and protecting our elections here in America. And then finally, we'll talk about why an executive order is needed. And of course, we'll give you an update on Tina. So thank you so much for joining us. And I'll turn it over to Garland to introduce Ricardo.
And before I introduce Ricardo, I just want to mention that Tina Peters has been in prison now for a solid 5 months. In fact, I mean 6 months now.
Yeah, and 6 months tomorrow.
And again, we want to remember that she was a Gold Star mom. She has never been convicted of any crime. Her case is under appeal for a nonviolent offense of having a Dominion system upgrade being observed. And because of this, she is in prison for 9 months. I'm sorry, 6 months. 6 months. Let's hope it never gets to 9. And yes, 6 months. And this lady has has a nonviolent offense, never even have so much as a parking ticket, and her case is under appeal. And this is 6 months in jail for her. And this is obvious not only a political prosecution, but a persecution. And we are grateful for the Department of Justice that has moved this from a civil case to a criminal case, a criminal investigation into the people who did this to her. And I would certainly that would include the district attorney and the judge Barrett in this case. So we just want to keep you. That is why we're here filling in for her tonight and or today, as the case may be. So without further ado, I want to bring on the chairman of the Georgia Constitution Party, longtime chairman. He served in this capacity for probably, I think we're pushing 30 years, at least 25. He's also the co-founder of Voter GA, our organization. And not only that, he has just been one of my closest friends for the last 25 years, if not the closest. So welcome to the show, Ricardo Davis, one of the lead plaintiffs in the Curling v. Raffensperger case that had such a big announcement this week. Ricardo,
thank you for having me on today, Garland.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. I don't know where to start on this case, but just this week, this has been 6 years, and Ricardo can reflect a little bit about what all of that has transpired during the 6 years. But this week, just was it yesterday or the day before?
The night of the 31st.
Night of the 31st. So that was the yesterday, the night before. The night before. So we were hit with the news that Judge Totenberg, after 6 years, has suddenly decided that the plaintiffs in this case have no standing, and she has dismissed the case after making numerous orders in favor of Ricardo and the other plaintiffs. I don't know how she'll ever justify that intellectually, but in any case, Ricardo, thank you for being here. And Why don't you start out by giving us a little background of this case and how it got started, all the amazing rulings that you had gotten up until now.
Well, Garland, when I started getting text messages the evening of the 31st with regards to this, I thought for sure this was an April Fool's joke about to be portrayed on me here. But when I actually got a chance to take a look at the ruling the following day, I realized that this was serious, that Judge Totenberg, after, my goodness, a month-long trial and litigation, at least in this phase of the litigation since 2019, she's essentially said, I washed my hands of the case because the plaintiffs had no standing. Have a nice day.
Yes, and just to give the listeners a little background on this case, this started back in 2019 when you and the other plaintiffs sued to remove the DRE systems, we call them direct recording electronic touchscreens in Georgia, because they were constitutionally deficient. These
That's
machines,
right. And that was 2017, Garland.
2017. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So it's been 8 years. Excuse me. Thank you for correcting me, Ricardo. It is even worse than I ever possibly imagined. But back then, when the case was filed, this was after the major exposure was found at Kennesaw State University, where the election server that prepped all of the county servers for all of the elections throughout the state of Georgia was found to be wide open to the internet for anyone in the world to hack in, put malware on the main preparation server and have it downloaded to all the counties for all the elections and virtually control the Georgia elections without detection. And that case started off, y'all had brought the case of the equal protection and due process case to ban those systems as being constitutionally deficient. They couldn't verify it. They were unverifiable to the voter. There was no ballot. They were not transparent. You couldn't audit. There was nothing to audit, and you couldn't even recount a race because it reprinted the previous unverifiable results. So
And I think that's one of the things about the system that people just couldn't believe is that a recount is essentially just clicking the button, as it were, and rerunning the report.
Exactly. Reprinting the previous unverifiable results, as I like.
Exactly.
But y'all brought the lawsuit, and you
Yes.
were successful along with at that time you were with the coalition plaintiffs. You ended up coming out separately. But you and the curling plaintiffs, y'all brought that case, and you successfully got Judge Totenberg to rule that the system was constitutionally deficient. Correct?
And I might add, Garland, at that stage of the case, there was no question as to standing.
And there has never been a question about standing in this case. In fact, she has stated that in some of those orders, has she not? In several times.
Yes.
That standing
At the very least, it was implied that we had standing due to the orders that she gave the state, either to compel them to take care of certain actions, for example, getting rid of the old DRE systems, which was, I guess you can say, that was when we advanced the case and the judge ordered that the state could no longer use the old Debo DRE systems. That was our first big win in this litigation.
And absolutely huge win on behalf of all of the voters in the state of Georgia.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we all have you to thank for that, you and the other plaintiffs in this case. So we're grateful to all the plaintiffs for obtaining that judgment for all of us. And we got the that system removed, and then the Secretary of State turned around and bought another system that's equally as unverifiable to the because it stores the votes in a QR code that the voter cannot verify either. And then
Correct.
y'all filed another action to ban that system on the same grounds as the first action. Did I get that right, Ricardo?
That is correct. When we realized that the state was going to go forward with that purchase of the Dominion voting system, we, different plaintiffs, we came to the judge and we essentially said, Judge, all of the core issues that were at stake with the DREs are still in play. We still believe our constitutional rights will continue to be infringed. And here's the other thing, again, coming back to the ruling, when the judge agreed to continue the case, there was no question with regards to whether we had standing.
Exactly. And there's never been a question in regards to any standing that might exist because y'all were filing I think it was an equal protection due process case.
That's correct.
That the voting system violated your constitutional rights. It was constitutionally deficient. And she actually agreed with you.
Yes. Oh, and Garland, if I might add, voter GA in particular was critical at this phase in not only keeping an eye on the systems that were being considered, but also through some of voter GA's research, providing the Georgia legislature what I would call information with which they could determine whether or not the system would actually be suitable according to state law.
Got it. So fast forward. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what's interesting here, I thought in her ruling, is how she tried to explain that the plaintiff's standings evolved over time. And I didn't quite understand how she tried to explain that. And I thought, you know, of all these cases, the 2020 election cases, so many of them were dismissed on standing. Garland has the Fulton County counterfeit ballot case that was dismissed on standing. We thought 10 months from Judge Amaro was terrible. Now it sounds actually like it wasn't so bad. But no judge seemed to have used this excuse that standing evolved over time. Is there any merit to that at all?
Absolutely not. And quite frankly, the plaintiffs are united in this regard that the injuries that we alleged in our case really haven't, quote, evolved insofar as the fundamental principles at stake with regards to our constitutional rights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know, because this is not, of course, the first time that you've had a problem with the judge. So dropping back to the trial at the beginning of this year, last year, excuse me.
Last year, Garland, it's been a long time, sir.
Time flies when you're having fun or even when you're not. So you decided to step out and so you can get some additional evidence on the record of actual vote count failures that the other plaintiffs did. You know, their arguments were more theoretical and academic. You put significant evidence on the record that, in fact, real vote count failures had happened. I remember you used the DeKalb District 2 Commission race information where the system literally declared the wrong winners in that race, and it was only found out because the candidate got no votes in the precinct where she and her family lived and voted. And so you were able to get a lot of evidence on that record and stepping out for yourself. You were not able to even have rebuttal witnesses called. So I think that you have a greater appeals ground than other plaintiffs do, depending upon how this all plays out. But
well, yes, and we are we are talking with counsel with regards to our options on how to proceed. But if I could summarize it, Garland, essentially, the judge took the safe way out by saying that, well, hey, this court has already admonished the state with regards to the problems with their systems, and that because the state has been making progress with regards to remedying the constitutional deficiencies, she feels justified in making the claim that we had no standing.
Yes, and I think she was referring to Senate Bill 189.
That's correct.
Which is basically banned the QR code again. There's already 2 statutes. She had already ruled in 2020 that the October 11th that the system violated 2 Georgia statutes. Then the General Assembly tacked on a 3rd statute to that just recently, Senate Bill 189. The Georgia Supreme Court has ruled that all ballots must be handwritten or hand marked with a writing instrument. So you've got the Georgia Supreme Court, the Georgia General Assembly, and the U.S. District Court all saying that this voting system is illegal, but she did not have the courage to make the right decision.
Well, this what I like to call judge's juke, if I can use the football analogy there, on the issue of standing, Garland reminds me of an earlier case where you were litigating this case in state court with the alleged counterfeit ballots in Fulton County, where you got to the point where, hey, the judge saw sufficient grounds to grant that you all have an injunction against Fulton County from doing anything to those ballots.
Yes, and he ordered that they unsealed.
And then at the last hour, Judge Amero did the same thing. Basically made a quick ruling saying, you have no standing. And then we had to.
Yeah, and that was after he ordered the ballots to be unsealed. And we still
forgot about that. That's right.
That's right. And that order is now in effect because the Supreme Court kicked the case back, and we still have not seen the ballots yet after multiple home and records requests.
Oh, now, Garland, this kind of gets to my point of avoiding actually taking action on politically inconvenient court cases. Now, once the state Supreme Court had made its determination and your case was back in play, when was that point when your case was back in play? Was that a year ago, year and a half ago?
December of 23.
22.
Oh my.
22.
Oh, you're right. 22.
December of 22, yes. Our case was back in play. The order was in effect. That's been 2.5 years, and we have not seen the ballots yet.
Mm-hmm. So I want to make sure the audience understands that, people think about what's happening, for example, at the federal level, with all the funny business with judges and the executive branch. Well, this isn't just the federal government problem or the federal judiciary problem. This is a problem of the judiciary in general.
Amen. Amen, brother. Yeah. And we're getting close to the break, but before we do, you mentioned your counsel, and we haven't shown the pictures yet, which I meant to do when we started off this segment. So let's bring up a couple of pictures of us down at the courthouse. I got to serve as your advisor because you were not there a few of the days, and there you see Tamara and I and Ricardo. Sandra Burkhardt, who was there and prayed for us every day. She came to us to pray for us. God bless her. And then in the middle is your attorney, David Oles, who came into a difficult situation but earned the respect of all the attorneys and even the judge
Yes, he did.
before that whole case was over. So that's a great picture of us there at the Richard Russell U.S. District Courthouse there in downtown Atlanta.
So the
And that was
bottom
near the
line
end of the
here
trial.
is that we're seeing this nationwide where the judiciary just passes the buck and we can't depend on them.
Right. I just think this is the epitome of corruption. And I think what your attorney, David Oles, said, that it was a disingenuous, intellectually dishonest.
That's it right there.
It was an intellectually dishonest order. And you imagine that Judge Tamara is going to have to take that to her grave. It's unbelievable. She has been so consistent and so good. And Cleta Mitchell summed it up in a Federalist article today. She said, as long as the Democrats were benefiting, Judge Totenberg was willing to do the right thing. But suddenly, if there's any chance that her decision could have benefited a Republican, then she suddenly flipped over to the other side of the coin and joined the other corrupt judges that we've talked about earlier and that we're seeing throughout the country. So what a sad state of affairs. Ricardo, is there anything you want to say in closing for this segment before we break?
Well, Garland, in one interview that I had before today, actually it was earlier today, where I was asked about this matter, there were two things that I thought really needed to be seriously looked at, in particular at the state level, is that the state legislature needs to consider reform on how elections related cases are adjudicated. And I know I've talked to you about proposed legislation since what happened 2 days ago. I've been even adding more information with regard to that proposed legislation. But suffice it to say, we need something like this. The second thing that I think is to our advantage, just like at the federal level, where DOJ, the Department of Government Efficiency, is exposing the literal corruption and perfidy going on in the federal government and making it known to the people. This case, in particular, this ruling, gives us an opportunity to kind of remove the curtain as to what's actually happening here in the state of Georgia, so that in the court of public opinion, people will understand that not only did me and my fellow plaintiffs have standing, but that we deserve justice.
Absolutely. It's a tremendous voting rights violation. And Ricardo, I want to thank you for joining us. Before we leave, though, I want to just mention there is a silver lining in this cloud, because literally, just as we recorded this show, the Senate passed Senate Bill 214, which would return us to hand-marked paper ballots and restore basically a lot of the plaintiffs' claims and basically give us some justice from this corrupt voting system. So there may be hope to get that passed in this legislative session.
And that's the state Senate, Georgia State Senate.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tamara. And let's hopefully, if we can get that passed, then that will we'll get rid of this system, at least the ballot marking devices, but we still have those scanners, tabulators, and servers to go. So Ricardo, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you and everything that you've been doing for many, many decades, or let's say many years and several decades. I don't want to make you older than you really than you are. So.
My gray hair gives me a ways.
Yeah, at least you got some hair.
Well, okay. Well, and again, thank you for having me on the show today.
Great. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you. And
Bye-bye.
I think with that, we will take a break.
And
When
be
we
back.
Be right back.
For the executive order, Donald Trump's executive order. Stand by for that. Big deal. Big news.
Hi, I'm Joe, Supreme Leader of DCF Guns. What is DCF Guns, you ask? We're the best damn gun store and range in the universe. Do we have guns? We have all the guns. We got small guns. We got big guns. We even have beastly guns. We offer all types of training, and we have 5 ranges across our 3 locations. I'm a good shot. And of course, we have all types of ammo. We even have flamethrowers. Woo! We offer incredible membership opportunities, and members save even more on guns, ammo, and accessories. Military, both active and retired, and first responders get up to 40% off memberships. Come join the DCF family today, where we keep the range hot and the deals hotter. It's hot. In every thread, in every stitch, Honor-Bound USA weaves the fabric of the American spirit. It's not just apparel, it's a testament to God, family, and country. At Honor-Bound USA, we're a family of patriots who put our faith, family, and America first. When you visit our website, you'll find a line of products that embody our commitment to pray, stand, speak, and act. As the official site for the Untamed podcast, all of our products proclaim speaking the truth with courage. We also have the powerful documentary from Professor David Clements, Let My People Go. Identify yourself as one of the few who are willing to stand for what they believe in. Join the Honor-Bound USA family today. Wear it as a badge of honor, commitment to the values that shape us, and a pledge to the bright future we will build together. Because when you're honor-bound, you're not just wearing a brand, you're embodying a lifestyle.
And welcome back. I'm Tamara Favorito with Garland Favorito, and we are going to talk to you now about the president's executive order. He issued it on March 25th, and it's to preserve and protect the integrity of American elections. President Trump is serious that he is going to make sure our elections are secure. He understands that 2020 was stolen and it's not going to happen again.
Exactly. And so we're going to step through this executive order, the order number 14248, executive order 14248, preserving and protecting the integrity of American elections. And yeah, that's thank you. We're running this on the screen right now so that you can see it. And we're going to start off with section 1, the purpose and the policy. And Tamara, what I thought was interesting about this is that when he started off, he started off with knowledge of how elections are conducted worldwide. And he quoted several things, and maybe we could throw that back up and get the folks to follow along with section 1. I think it's in the second sentence. So y'all can follow along at home. And Tamara's going to read to you one paragraph that I thought was really interesting, where he describes how other countries conduct elections and how they do things better than we do.
Which is really a sad state of affairs when you think about that. But he says, India and Brazil, for example, are tying voter identification to a biometric database, while the U.S. largely relies on self-attestation for citizenship. In tabulating votes, Germany and Canada require use of paper ballots counted in public by local officials, which substantially reduces the number of disputes as compared to the American patchwork of voting methods that can lead to basic chain of custody problems. Further, while countries like Denmark and Sweden sensibly limit mail-in voting to those unable to vote in person and do not count late arriving votes regardless of the date of postmark. So I think that gives you a hint as to where he's going in this executive order.
Absolutely. And moving on to section 2, section 2, he identifies he wants to enforce the citizenship requirements for federal elections. So we call this the citizenship executive order because we think there's more to come. So, and Tamara, and here he identifies the types of identification that will be accepted for citizenship requirements in the elections. He identifies 4 different things, A, B, C, and D here in section 2. Tamara, why don't you tell them what they are?
Yeah, it's interesting. He wants there to be documentary proof. So a U.S. passport is acceptable. The identification document that is compliant with the requirements of the Real ID Act. Now, it's interesting that the Real ID driver's license, at least here in Georgia, is not always reliable for determining whether a person is a citizen or not. So you would have to show the identification document that backs that up. Also, an official military identification card, as long as it shows that this applicant is a citizen of the U.S., and a valid federal or state government issued photo identification if such identification indicates that the applicant is a U.S. citizen. So he's heavy emphasis on proving that anybody that wants to register to vote or to vote is a U.S. citizen.
So we had passport, real ID, military identification card, and a state or federal issued, government issued photo ID. That's to qualify for citizenship, but he also addressed how to unqualify, check for unqualified voters, and he ordered the Secretary of Homeland Security to provide the states with access to systems for verifying the citizenship or immigration status of individuals who are registering to vote. So they're going to be able to check citizenship. The local county officials are going to be able to check citizenship using federal systems. And he's ordering that the federal systems to assist, but not only the states, but the local counties in making sure that they comply with the citizenship requirement. So that's very exciting, but even more exciting, my favorite, one of my 2 favorite things in this whole executive order is that the Department of Homeland Security has been ordered to review the publicly available voter registration list in each state in coordination with the DOJ administrator. Wow. If they have found stuff in the Social Security database, imagine what they're going to find in the voter registration databases. We know that they are 20% invalid registrations nationwide.
I think they're going to blow this wide open because we know how DOJ is ferreting things out in every database that they touch. And it also says that they need to look at the list maintenance activities of the counties. So I'm really glad to see that they're going to go after what these counties are doing, because clearly they're not maintaining the rolls if there's 20% invalid registration entries.
And so, folks, we're only on section 2, and we are pretty excited already. So section 3 talks about that the Commissioner of Social Security will also help these state and local election officials by making available the Social Security number verification service and the death master file in order to verify the eligibility of individuals who are registering to vote. So another exciting thing there, and even though there might be some issues with that Social Security database, making this available to state and local officials will certainly help.
Well, I think the fact that DOJ has already been in there and they have already identified all the people that clearly are not 120 years or older that are on the rolls, They have identified the fraud already. I think these databases are going to be in good shape so that the counties in all of the states can actually depend on them. So I think this is great timing for this order to come out.
Absolutely. And then not only that, in Section 3, in addition, he has ordered the Secretary of Defense to update the federal postcard application for uniformed and overseas citizens absentee voting. That's what we call the UOCAVA voters. And that postcard is going to require documentary proof of U.S. citizenship and proof of eligibility to vote in elections in the state in which the voter is attempting to vote from overseas.
And I think it's pretty amazing. In fact, it hasn't been very long that I have understood and seen this form in its current state. This form would allow people overseas to register to vote or to request an absentee ballot with no identification. I mean, there's nothing that's required on this form. So I think it's great that they're going to have to update it so that any citizen overseas has got to prove they're a citizen and prove that they're eligible to vote in any particular state.
Absolutely. And then in Section 4, remember, we're still got 10 or 11 sections. So we're only on Section 4. Section 4, he says that he talks about the Election Assistance Commission. And first of all, he mentions, he wants to cease providing federal funds to states that are not going to comply with federal laws.
That's awesome. I mean, that is saying you better get your act together because we've seen here in Georgia where the Secretary of State just doesn't follow the law. And now they're not going to be able to get away with it.
Yeah, and he's particularly interested in the National Mail Voter Registration Form, the compliance with that, USC 20505. So that's one of the things. And then he wants the Election Assistance Commission to amend the Voluntary Voting System Guidelines 2.0. These are the current standards in which voting systems are amended. And this is another one of my very favorite things in this order. He wants the guidelines amended, and he's ordering the EAC amend their guidelines to ensure that voting systems cannot use a ballot in which a vote is contained within a barcode or a quick response code.
And we know we have here in Georgia still, we're using a ballot marking device that spits out a selection summary, not even a ballot, that has a QR code where it holds all the votes. So we don't even know if the selections we made are correct. So he has gone after this. As Garland mentioned in the last segment, the Georgia General Assembly last year passed a law banning the QR code starting in July of next year. So we're glad to see that the president is following this up because this is critical.
Absolutely. So thank God that the General Assembly and President Trump are having the courage to do what Judge Totenberg did not have the courage to do and squirmed away with from it with every inch of her body to trying to get as far away as she could from doing the right thing. This is great news for us. And he's telling the Election Systems Commission after they amend it that they then, this is another one of my favorite ones, they're going to recertify the voting systems under the new standards established under that section and rescind all previous certifications of voting equipment based on prior standards. That means that the Dominion Democracy Suite 5.5 system and the ES&S Express Vote system, including the ES&S Express Vote XL, are two of the most, in my opinion, corrupt decisions that have ever been made since DREs, which would be the most corrupt. They're going to be out of business. So they're going to have to be figuring out what they're going to do. We're not going to be using their corrupt ballot marking devices anymore. No state will be able to buy that system if they want an EAC certified system.
And of course, when Tina was the clerk in Mesa County, they were using the Dominion ballot marking system. Mhm.
That's correct. Now, they, to their credit, they use it primarily only for the disabled voters. In Georgia, we use it for everybody. You're required, if you vote in person, to vote on this silly, corrupt system. So this is going to go away soon, and it could not be sooner. I'm happy to see that one go as fast as possible. So moving on, I hardly control myself, and we're only to section 5. So section 5 says these agreements shall, basically we're talking about going into agreements between the federal government and the states for information sharing about suspected violations of state and federal law. So the states are going to be required to report that federally. Right now they cover it up, but included in that is those who commit election fraud. And if the states withhold that information from the federal government, then they are, in my opinion, committing election fraud, and they should be held accountable. And he even puts in some conditions under which if they don't comply, what he's going to do. And he's going to prioritize enforcement of those laws in such states to ensure election integrity and review withholding grants and other funds from those states that won't comply.
I think he knows how to make people hurt. And that's hitting them in the pocketbook. And the states and the counties are not going to want that. So I think they are going to shape up here.
Absolutely. So stand by. We're coming up on another one of my favorite sections. This is section 6, improving the security of voting systems, where he says he wants to prevent all non-citizens from being involved in the administration of any federal election. That's including by accessing election equipment, ballots, or any other relevant materials used in the conduct of any federal election. That is now going to be reserved for, in section 6, for citizens. Only citizens can run elections.
And that makes total sense. If you have to be a citizen to vote, then only citizens should be working on our elections, especially touching equipment and ballots. And I will put a plug in for Georgia here. Our General Assembly last year passed legislation that said all election workers have to be U.S. citizens. So once again, we were a little bit ahead of the president, and we're really proud of that.
Absolutely. And we are. I was a Brandon Beach bill originally, and then I think Max Burns picked it up. So moving on to section 6B, another one of my things that I'm really excited about. The Secretary of Homeland Security shall, in coordination with the Election Assistance Commission, and he puts to the maximum extent possible because Election Assistance Commission has some issues, but they're going to review and report on the security of all electronic systems used in the voter registration and the voting process. Wow, that is exactly what we need to do. And he says that they will assess the security of all such systems to the extent that they are connected to or integrated into the internet, and report on the risk of such systems being compromised through malicious software and unauthorized intrusions into the system.
I think that means that the president hasn't bought the narrative from election officials throughout the country and the vendors that these machines are not connected to the internet.
And neither have we.
Yes, that's right.
Section 7. Okay, I'm trying to recover and try to calm down a little bit here. Section 7 basically talks about the National Election Day in law, and that he wants to establish here a uniform and non-discriminatory ballot receipt deadline of Election Day for all methods of voting. no, you can't bring ballots in 3 days after the election and expect them to count. It's only common sense, but that's what they do in Georgia when they want to cheat. The judges say that that's okay. Election officials will let it go. Sometimes the legislature passes laws. That's going to stop. This is through this executive order.
Yeah, and here in Georgia, dating back to 2009, the overseas ballots can be received up to 3 days after the elections. And there's other states that are even worse than that. I know California in 2020, I'm not sure if they're still allowing it today, but they allowed 17 days for absentee ballots to be received. So he is reining that in.
Yes, indeed. And that brings us to Section 8, which is also very important, where he was ordered to prevent foreign nationals from contributing or donating to United States elections, and prohibits lobbying from those organizations or entities that have received federal funds. That is another great news for us. And again, we have already passed legislation here in Georgia to do just that.
That's right. And it only makes sense. We don't need foreign interference.
And I love it, getting those people, those organizations who have received federal funds out of this lobbying effort. So,
yeah.
So finally, executive Section 9 ceases all agency actions that were brought into play by Executive Order 14019. That was, you remember, that was Joe Biden's order to promote access to voting. And basically, he turned all the federal government agencies into get out the vote efforts for his campaigns. So that's going to go away.
And he actually signed an executive order on the first day, January 20th, to rescind that President Biden's order. And now he wants a report to know what federal agencies are actually doing. So he's making sure that they have stopped playing voter registrations.
Good. So the other two sections are what we call boilerplate sections for severability and general provisions. We're going to skip those in the interest of time, and we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and talk about what's next in terms of executive orders and why we need more of these. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Joe, Supreme Leader of DCF Guns. What is DCF Guns, you ask? We're the best damn gun store and range in the universe. Do we have guns? We have all the guns. We got small guns. We got big guns. We even have beastly guns. We offer all types of training, and we have 5 ranges across our 3 locations. I'm a good shot. And of course, we have all types of ammo. We even have flamethrowers. Woo! We offer incredible membership opportunities, and members save even more on guns, ammo, and accessories. Military, both active and retired, and first responders get up to 40% off memberships. Come join the DCF family today, where we keep the range hot and the deals hotter. It's hot. In every thread, in every stitch, Honor-Bound USA weaves the fabric of the American spirit. It's not just apparel, it's a testament to God, family, and country. At Honor-Bound USA, we're a family of patriots who put our faith, family, and America first. When you visit our website, you'll find a line of products that embody our commitment to pray, stand, speak, and act. As the official site for the Untamed podcast, all of our products proclaim speaking the truth with courage. We also have the powerful documentary from Professor David Clements, Let My People Go. Identify yourself as one of the few who are willing to stand for what they believe in. Join the Honor-Bound USA family today. Wear it as a badge of honor, a commitment to the values that shape us, and a pledge to the bright future we will build together. Because when you're honor-bound, you're not just wearing a brand, you're embodying a lifestyle.
All right, welcome back. We are back on the show there, and we talked about just before we left that Donald Trump, we believe, is going to issue more executive orders.
Well, he said in the press conference when he signed this executive order, he said there is more to come over the next few weeks. So I think we can expect more.
Absolutely. So, but why do we need more? That's what we want to explain to you folks tonight. So, here's a few reasons that we'd like for you to distribute and tell your folks about it to get the word out about what's wrong and why we need it.
You know, number one is we really have a national security crisis because the voting systems have unresolvable security issues. We have compelling evidence of foreign interference with domestic accomplices that have been tampering with the results and casting votes for all these ineligible registrations that we mentioned earlier. And it's almost like we are in a war. And that calls for national security measures from the president.
And I think that many people don't understand the seriousness of this crisis. So thanks for pointing that out, Tamara. In addition, election results are untrustworthy because the vote counting is not secure. The voter rolls are loaded with ineligible registrations, and the results are not publicly verifiable.
So basically, and I think this is true pretty much throughout the entire country, is the ballots are scanned and tabulated, so they're basically counted in secret. We don't know whether they're right or not.
Well, that's right. We use secretly counted votes using secret proprietary software or secretly preserved ballots. And then the elections officials will say, well, we can test and audit this stuff. Well, basically, the experts have already said that there is no amount of testing that can prevent malware-based fraud. And the audits are wholly inadequate to ensure accurate results. You know, you can't audit one race and expect another race to be okay just because you audited one. So that does not work.
Mm-hmm. And Congress clearly has the authority under Article 1, Section 4 to determine the type and manner for conducting federal elections. But in the state of emergency, that goes to the president.
Well, exactly. And a lot of people will, and including myself, would say, well, the time, place, and manner to conduct elections is left to the states. Well, if you read that carefully, Article 1, Section 4, where it says that, it also says that Congress can also legislate the time and manner for conducting federal elections. So they do have that power. And then once it's federal, then that the president has the emergency power, as you have said, Tim.
Mm-hmm. The other really important point here is the elections have been declared critical infrastructure. And that is, if you are working with equipment in the Department of Defense, they have very rigid guidelines that the equipment has to comply with, but it doesn't apply to elections. Even though they declared it critical infrastructure, we don't have these critical or really rigid guidelines for the equipment. And I think the president needs to change that during the national emergency.
Exactly. And we believe he has full authority to do that under the national emergency powers and to make them comply with the Defense Production Act, as well as the Federal Information Security Modernization Act. Mm-hmm. So, you know, because basically, you know, the Congress, state and election officials and the judiciary have all failed us miserably. They're not going to protect the American people on elections. So it falls to the president, and thank God that he seems to be willing to do that.
Yes. He is amazing. And I think what he's been through these last 4 years, he has decided that he's going to go for it. And he is going to make the American people secure again, including the elections.
Exactly. And so we're really excited about that because he's acted to resolve other major federal crises, like all the way down the line in every aspect that he's touched so far. He's just made dramatic changes on behalf of the American people. It's a really exciting time to be alive. But and his statements on elections have been dead on a correct. But one thing he hasn't mentioned much, and we hope that he'll mention more, is the need for hand counting to ensure that these election results are correct, and total transparency to ensure the security. Everything should be open to the public. If it does, it will resolve all the divisiveness that he mentioned early on when you started off this executive order and reading the first paragraph.
And I think that pretty much sums it up. What we want you to know is to be watching, because I think he is going to come out with more. And those of us who are concerned about having free and fair elections are going to be really pleased with what we see him doing. So I think with that, I just want to give you a little bit of an update on Tina. As Garland said at the beginning of this program, she is completing 6 years or 6 months, probably feels like 6 years to her, in Larimer County jail, women's jail in Colorado. She has been informed that she could be moved to Denver Women's Prison anytime. I think many of us were expecting that it might come on April 1st, but it hasn't. I am praying that she will be released before that happens. So if we could get that last slide up, thank you. We have a call to action that I know many of you have heard many times. Governor Polis is the one who has the power to pardon her. So please call or write his office asking him. Actually, you can demand very respectfully that he pardon her immediately. And then also, please go to tinapeters.us and donate. It goes to help cover her legal fees as well as her personal expenses while she's in prison. And tune into her show. As I'm sure all of you know, there's guest hosts every Monday through Friday, and they'll give updates of what's going on. Sometimes Tina is able to call in. I heard her when she called in to the Colorado GOP's gala the other night, and bless her heart, she sounds so strong, and we so appreciate and admire her faith. And I just want to say a quick prayer for her. Father, we know that you are a good God and that you have Tina's life and her destiny in your hands. And Father, I ask that you bring this time of persecution to an end. But in the midst of it, Father, continue to surround her with your angels, to protect her, to minister to her. And Lord, I just ask that you would let the scales fall from Governor Polis's eyes, and he would see truth, and he would be compelled to do the right thing. We know that you are a God capable of anything, and we trust you, and we thank you for it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So thank you for watching out there. This has been Garland and Tamara Favorito sitting in for Tina Peters, because truth matters. Tina, we want you back here soon.
That's right. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Tina Peters here.
See, today they go after you if you're investigating, that sort of thing.